Carefully. When we first talked about sanctuary cities, as you well know, I was opposed to the legislation at the beginning. I signed on, I pulled my name off, I wasn't pleased with the way it was going, and I have really studied this in order to be able to feel comfortable with what you're trying to do, and I am very comfortable with what you're trying to do. I want to ask you a couple of questions because since the Arizona law came into effect, there's a lot of publicity in every state about what they're doing and what they're not doing. And some, I think, have absolutely gone overboard. They keep referencing Georgia. Right. They reference Arizona. They're now referencing Alabama. And I'd like to use the Alabama law just very quickly to run through some of the issues that Alabama is known for at this moment in time in their new law. And I want to ask you if we have any of this in our law, in Senate Bill 9. In Alabama, they say that you can be stopped just for reasonable suspicion. Is that in your law?
That's not true in Texas.
Not true in Texas.
It also reasonable suspicion of what?
It just says reasonable suspicion that the person is an illegal immigrant. That's the Alabama law. It also says it bars illegal immigrants from enrolling in any public college after high school. Do we have that in Texas?
That is not in Texas, and it's not a part of this bill.
And not only do we allow them to enroll in public colleges, but we let them also have in-state tuition. So we have gone above and beyond.
I voted for that, by the way, as a House member, and I continue to support the provisions of that. I think if you have a student who's gone to high school and graduated here, they've lived here and grown up, and they have the intention of becoming a U.S. citizen, we ought to allow them to.
So our law does not forbid that.
This does not touch that one.
It also says that it obliges school districts to determine the immigration status of all students. Does your bill do that?
It does not.
We're taking out public schools.
Public schools are not included.
Which was very important to me, and I appreciate your doing that. It requires parents of foreign-born students to report the immigration status of their children. Do we do that in this law?
No, we do not.
Does the bill say that public schools must publish figures on the number of immigrants, both legal and illegal, who are enrolled and any costs that are associated with illegal immigration education for students?
It does not.
It does not. And one more, and that is, does it say that it's a crime to knowingly rent housing to an illegal immigrant?
It does not.
Okay. These are laws that are being passed all over this country. For whatever reason, right or wrong, state legislatures all over this country are putting these harsh, in my view, harsh immigration laws in place. Partially because of the sheer frustration, I believe, that the federal government has chosen to absolutely turn a blind eye and not assist in some of these issues. I think the bill that you have come forward with and we've talked about a lot, I appreciate some of the changes you've made. My concerns with public schools are an enormous part of that. My concerns for cities is an enormous part of that. And I'm going to ask you a couple of other questions for cities later on. But I want it to be clear, and I'm going to use a little poetic license for just a brief moment. Let me reference an article that was in a newspaper on June the 9th that used, and this was in opposition to Senate Bill 9, and it said there's a perception fueled by the media and politicians looking to score cheap points. This is an example of how facts often don't get in the way of emotion when it comes to the very complicated topic of illegal immigration. I happen to believe the exact opposite. I think you have been very conscientious in making sure that there are no scoring of cheap points here, that there is no emotion that takes precedent over good, solid judgment. And I happen to think it is a very complicated and difficult issue. And I think you have manifest a bill with some adjustments if, in fact, the legalities of it need some reference points. I have no problem with that. But I think you have really tried to make this a law that we will not be on the front page of headlines in other states because we have been very compassionate and we have been very meaningful in the way you presented this, and I'm here to tell you that I support what you've done, and I will do what I can to listen to some of the other concerns, but I certainly think that you have tried very hard to bring forward a bill that is not an Arizona or Alabama or Georgia type law. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Senator Shapiro.